There we go. Alright, gonna cover up. I've got a bit of lag on this setup for the live streaming, and I find I use what's it called, OBS, or Open Broadcasting software, and it's a little bit glitchy. So I really ought to check the video, and if it's coming across okay live. I'm just seeing a delay on the visual feedback that I'm getting. So anyway, garden design. So yeah, I'm trying to live stream most days, and yes. So today I want to talk about the Hope Garden, and this is really exciting project. I've got to get a new browser window up, and which means I can just check out a couple of things here. So yeah, just to give you a bit of background, it's a this is my website, NatureWorks, and so I'm a wildlife garden, forest garden designer. So basically, ornamental wildlife forest garden designer. I design gardens, and I put a lot of native plants in, a lot of edible perennials as well, and that's what I do as a trade, and also because this is we're in a nature and climate emergency, and every little thing that we do does make a difference to where you are, and it that effect ripples out. So I think it's a really important thing to do, and part of this is the Hope Garden. Now the website's not up and running. Oh, what have I got for you? Oh, I've got this. I just made a Ko-fi coffee page, like, to donate. I'll pop a link into Mastodon. And what this is, oh, I got a chat as well. I probably got a chat. Oh yeah, let's have a look. See, no one's using the chat. You gonna copy that? Oh crikey, clunky. Oh, go on then. Wow, look at that. It's gone off to Twitch, and I'm live streaming on YouTube as well. This is a coffee page, Ko-fi, I don't know how you pronounce it. Basically a copper coffee, so I guess it's coffee, and it's a donation page. So what I was thinking of doing, I've got a kind of website set up for this, but obviously I don't have, I haven't got vast amounts of time. I'll explain what the project is first of all. So the project is a show garden for a nature and climate emergency. It's a wildlife forest garden, and a show. At the heart of it is a community assembly. So this is about getting a show garden, hopefully RHS Hampton Court 2025, not next year. Got too much to do between now and then. The submissions have to be in by around about now, actually. I think September time. So it won't be until 2025. So submitting it next year, but I want to get some impetus behind it. And there's two reasons for doing this. Firstly, there is real resistance in British horticulture against using native plants, and the kind of very loose term rewilding, but just native plants in general. It's like a real it's quite bonkers, really. You've got Alan Titchmarsh sounding off about it. I need to go and read up exactly what he said before I badmouth him, but and Monty Don's kind of waded in a bit as well. And it's a bit like saying, oh, if it's got a dandelion and it's not a garden, and you're going, okay. So I just really want to get over the idea that whether it's native plants or non-native plants, it's still a garden. A garden is it's the process of gardening, and you can garden with native plants just as well as you can garden with non-native plants. It really doesn't come into it. If you leave a patch of ground alone, that's fine. Yeah, I'd say it's not a garden. If you're not doing anything to it at all, that becomes a kind of, what would you say? Neglected is a loaded word. Uncared for piece of wildland. And you can have wildland which is managed as well. So there's an awful lot to unpack here around the terms rewilding, and there's also a fair amount to unpack around native plants as well. Now, just kind of come to native plants very quickly. Native plants are good for the environment because insects will eat them. Yeah, because they've co-evolved with them over millions of years. So insects eat native plants and more than they do non-native plants. There was a study by the RHS, I think, crikey, maybe 5-10 years ago. I've got a copy of it, and I've just skimmed read it. But it seems like the insects will eat non-native plants, and if you've got roses, they're like pretty roses, not non-native roses. You'll know that they'll get eaten by insects, but not as much. And there's also very kind of specialist insects as well. So by using native plants where possible, you're increasing the amount of food available to insects. And it's not just about your garden, because your garden sits within a landscape and is joined up to kind of wider ecosystems. So the more people that do it, there's a cumulative effect. And yeah, so native plants are basically good, and it's exciting as well. Now, the reason why I think it's absolutely fascinating, there's a real resistance to this, and I think this is cultural and has an awful lot to do with the British colonial past. And it's like anything that is seen as a native plant is seen as inferior, and it goes back millennia. For example, when the French came over in 1066, invaded England, that a lot of the French was the language of the court, and a lot of the words that you used, Anglo-Saxon words, were discouraged, and a lot of words that you use, like the word for beef, bœuf, comes from the French, whereas the word for cow, vache, is totally different. And the same with pork, I think, and pig. It's this idea of a hierarchy, a social hierarchy, and it's the same, I contest, and it's the same with gardens as well, that they are somehow seen as better and an indicator of a higher status in society if you have whatever a British traditional horticultural garden is. God, I don't know. So there's a real resistance against native plants. I want to do a course about this, actually, a class about what I call a radical horticulture, because it's not actually that bloody radical, but it's using natural processes, native plants where possible, growing edible perennials, and concentrating on the wildlife habitat and human habitat, actually a usable space too. So yes, it's a design space, but I think we're just a little bit hung up on how things look and how they photograph and how they appear on Instagram and how they appear to the neighbours. So I just want to kind of move away from that. Now, that isn't to say that you can't have a beautiful native plant garden. Of course you can. Like, if you're a decent designer, you can design using, I don't know, mops and coat hangers. But you've really got to look at why there's such a resistance to it. So I'll come on to that later. Anyway, so that's one part of it. And the other part is a community assembly. And the community assembly is a space for a community assembly is a form of participatory democracy where people make decisions, like relatively small groups of, well, it can be quite large groups of people, but in groups of about 5 to 8 people, they kind of come together, there's a big discussion about a particular subject. It's all very important how you frame the question. People have the discussion, and they go off into smaller groups and then talk about the issues raised and talk about ideas, and then they come back together. They make people make a list of the important points, and they come back together, and those points are all aired, and hopefully there's some sort of agreement comes to it. So it's a form of participatory democracy. So it's very, very different to the representative democracy that we have at the moment in this country, which works across community councils, parish councils, county councils, then there's the national elections like Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then there's national elections. So you've got 4 tiers of government, but it's all representative democracy, which I think is inherently well, it's best that we've got, but we can do better in democratic terms. So the garden is a show garden. It's going to showcase native plants, forest gardens, which is what I do. So forest gardens, edible perennials, working with nature, and at the heart of it is a community assembly. So that's the kind of plan. So I just want to go through the if you want any resources, brilliant. There's a Trust the People Let me kind of zoom in here. Trust the people. I'll chuck this into the notes as well. Well, notes. Maybe I won't chuck it into the chat. This is so annoying. Trustthepeople.earth, and they do a lot of stuff about community assemblies. So if you look under people, if you go to resources page and go to the People's Assembly manual, it'll give you an outline of how community assemblies work, also known as people assemblies, people's citizens assemblies, community assemblies, same thing. People's assemblies, community assemblies. Okay, so that's community assemblies, and then the actual space itself. And I've just done a very quick sketch. My drawing's not all that, but this is a 10 meter by 50 meter, really kind of approximate idea. So this is not, you know, it's just kind of getting it out there. This is what it would look like. So 10 meters by 50 meters, and then the actual space itself is divided up into 3 segments with the facilitator and note taker sit at the front. Yeah, and they sit around, and then you can turn the benches in on themselves. So it's just like you can do this anywhere. You can do it in a village hall, in a pub function room, wherever. But this is a kind of a showcase for it. So it's setting the scene with a garden, with beautiful planting, with native wildflowers and climbers and mature trees, and then it's got then you go through into the community assembly, and it's kind of private and a nice space. It's supposed to, the idea is to get it to work as a space that you want to, that's intimate and that you feel secure in. So yeah, lots of different ideas about planting and paths and access and routes, all sorts of things. But the thing that I've really concentrated on first of all is the kind of fundamental structure. And this is what you'd do in any garden. You'd kind of look at how is that space being used, who's using it, where they're coming in, where they're going out, what functions do you want, what features do you want, you know, I don't know, watering or drinking water or accessibility, people cooking there, there's a fire there, barbecue, whatever. There's all these different things. So this is about a community assembly, so this is really kind of focused on that space. So I'm kind of starting off with that. So this is a quick sketch. So the first session, the plenary session, like when everyone's together, there's 5 benches in each, say roughly 10-ish people per segment. 3 segments, that's about 30 people in total. It's about an 8 meter diameter, 7-8 meter diameter space, and the facilitator and note taker sit at the front. And then it goes into the breakout sessions where people sit around on benches, and you can see the pattern of the benches changes, and then they discuss, and then it's a kind of coming together session at the end, and they kind of put together all the points that are raised. So there's kind of lots of interesting things that can be done with this format, and also with the garden itself. So like notice boards, upcoming events, and also outcomes too. So how we're going to share that information that's kind of gathered. And my idea is to have some, like, what do you call them? Showcase discussions, and then invite groups of people in. So I don't invite the media in to talk about the silence on the climate and nature and climate emergency, and why that might be, and what can be done about it, and what useful role can the media play, and just talk about important stuff. Peat or reusable materials, peat-free compost, reusable materials in landscaping, native plants in British horticulture and ornamental horticulture, all these different issues, and just get a few and then just showcase them. You have to get them working, and then people can see what's happening with them. So that's the kind of basic design which will fit in there. And I've just done it up in CAD. Now I use CAD an awful lot when I'm doing my work, and that's because I do a lot of garden design, so I find it an awful lot easier to use CAD than to sketch, funnily enough. So this is what I've done. Plan view, you get used to looking at a plan view, and it's kind of nice. You can just kind of get the idea of the shape. You've got paths going in, paths going out, and there'll be a flow. Oh, it's kind of cool. I like it. It'll be interesting to see. Now, what is really important thing to do, any garden design that you're doing, what I would always do, put something together like this, and then I'll peg it out in real life, and just to see how that space works and how it relates to the space that you've got. Really, really important to do that. So if you're ever doing anything in your own garden, then do see what the space is doing. See how the space works. You need to try it out in real life. And then it came to the question of, what are we going to do with the if it rains? So there's some really good guys, Blue Green Cymru, and they're a local community interest company, and they do basically well-being workshops, a whole load of other stuff as well, but essentially well-being workshops, a lot of outdoor connecting with nature stuff as well. So they're great, Phil and Anna and Natalie. And this photo was on their Facebook page, and it's brilliant. Actually, that's a point. I was supposed to phone up Phil today. Anyway, I'll give him a call in a minute. A piece of canvas, and this is providing shelter over the space. So I think fantastic. Let's use that idea in for this community assembly area, because it's simple. Okay, I was looking at yurts, I was looking at teepees, but they are quite big and complex structures, and they're expensive as well. Whereas this piece of canvas, I think you could possibly get it for around £400, something like that, £500 maybe. I don't know. I will need to have a chat about it. And you've got a rope running down, and then you've got four sticks in the corner. You can just see down here. You've got four posts in the corner. So that could work really, really well. So then one of my favourite garden designers, hole digger, whatever you want to call him, wildlife habitat creator, John Little, and he's great. Go and have a look on TikTok. Grassroof Co, I think it is. He's on TikTok, and he's got like a dozen or so different videos, and it's brilliant because he's just been doing this stuff. He's been doing it for years. He knows what he's talking about. There's no bullshit, and he's having to play with it, and it's nice, and it's a refreshing break because it's about the wildlife. It's about using materials on site. It's about trying out different stuff. So, there's loads of things that he's done, like planting gravel and sand and crushed ceramics and just like recycled materials, bee logs. Yeah, just habitat, bike shelters, green roofs, the whole bit. So I love his stuff. He's really, really good bloke. And he's kind of experimenting. This was last December, I think. Experimenting with telegraph poles, and he's growing ivy up it. And I had this idea, and it's so funny. It's like, those ideas that you have, and you go, I ought to do this, but I never did. But my idea was to create a metal sculpture, like in the shape of a tree, and then grow ivy up it. So eventually the ivy will grow up, and you get a trunk, and you'd have just this green mass. Absolutely, I must do it. But he said he was growing ivy up these telegraph poles out in the full light in the garden. I thought, oh yeah, that's kind of the thing. So telegraph poles, and you bury them in. They're relatively cheap, easy to get hold of, last for years. And I thought, yes, because they're not going to be any established trees there, telegraph poles at each end for the canvas. So there you go, and they can be quite tall as well, and you can get climbers on them, and you can make it so that the canvas can come down. It doesn't have to be a covered area all the time, so that's a real kind of nice aspect to it. And they're cheap, and I today got a price for the 2 meter high sweet chestnut, roundwood sweet chestnuts kind of stakes, and they're cheap. I mean, they're only talking about they're 14 quid each plus delivery, which is bonkers really for what they're doing and their kind of longevity. And you get them charred as well. So I don't know if you've come across this, but if you char a stake or a fence post, if it's decent wood like sweet chestnut, it'll last for years and years. So yeah, it's a kind of really, really nice structure, really, really simple, and then it covers the community assembly area there. Okay, so that's where we're kind of at the moment. And it's really interesting. Now, what I am doing, I've got my own community interest company called Garden Wild, and they're putting a couple of bids for native plants as ornamentals. native plants for, oh, what the hell was it called? Native plants. Photo collections of UK native wildflowers. And yeah, it's kind of, it didn't, I tried to get some funding for it and it didn't really happen, which is a pain. But what I am doing is using it as the fundraising body for the Hope Garden, which is cool. So that's a CIC, which me and two friends of mine are the co-directors, and it's all going to be open source. So the idea is that the actual design of the garden, I want to see this. It would be nice if other people can get something from it. So like a proper show garden, they say that's a community assembly. That's how that works. And this is a wildlife forest garden, and these are the plants that you can use and how you can use them. But also the structure itself, you can say make this freely available, the costings for it and where you get the materials from. So if you're a community group and you want a covered area, this is how you do it, and this is how you can set up the benches, and this is how you can set up the hard standing area. So it's all the instructions are in there. And as part of that, I've created a code repository. So as I say, a lot of my work is on CAD. So like all this stuff is in CAD. But I've kind of kept it. I'll keep it in here, and I'm gonna edit that. Oh, I've got to change it. Anyway, so the PDF is in here, so you can see the PDF. And then the CAD file, I won't open the CAD file up, but the CAD file looks the same. This is just the beginning, it's just like a beginning sketch of it. So that's all available online. I need to add a license to it as well. Now, there is a worry that someone will come along and take this absolutely amazing idea, and then they'll set up their own show garden for the RHS, and you go, wow, what the hell, if it gets out there? That's the important thing. That's the important thing. But please don't. Because I'm trying to get the project together at the moment. So there we go. Yeah, there we have it. How long have I been? 22 minutes. That's cool. Okay, so any kind of questions or anything, do let me know. And if you want to support it, I am going to start writing stuff here, which would be really cool. I think that'd be a really nice thing to do. Am I going to do it now? No, don't think I will. What I am going to do is just update my website. So content, homepage, people. Here we go. So this is I used to be a web designer, and I find it very hard to give it up. My friend Martin, my friend Dan, wildlife forest garden design business. It's me going to change a couple of things, and okay, so if you look here on the website, this is the people who are running it. That's got my old photo on there. I look a bit miserable in that bit. There's Martin photoshopped to hell, and there's a avatar of Dan. So what you do, it's kind of pretty groovy. So I've just changed the URL. If you're ever into websites, it's called Hugo. Where am I? I'm going to go here. This is a terminal. Garden Wild. Oh. Gardenwild.org.uk. So GAA, GCAM. So that git add, git commit. You just add it to the code repository, and I just say update photo. Git push, and then it pushes it up to the repository. And yeah. It's kind of cool actually, and then you'll see I use this is all free as well, so can I log in? And it's hosted on Netlify, so it's a static website, terribly interesting, and then it means that you can see here when it's building, so there's some other bits and pieces that I've been doing. and it's built, and it's just like that. And then if you refresh this, bom bom bom, whee, it's updated my photo. So there we go. Okay, and then to put Hope Garden. I need to get people in there or something. I don't know. I'll change it. Right, so where are we at now then? 25, 26 minutes. Yeah. And Kofi, how do you pronounce the name? Let's find that out. It's really handy if you've got stuff that it's a really nice, it's by like one of the best websites based in the UK, and just like a really nice website to use. They don't do newsletters, which is why I didn't use it. I use Gumroad, which isn't bad for my shop. Oh, let me take you to my store whilst you're here. So yeah, I do like online classes using Gumroad, and I do a newsletter as well. So I've got a whole load of newsletters on here. But yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, here. So let's go to help, and then really ought to change the. This is the thing I've got to start thinking about. So I'm just going to go and baby. I really don't like Twitter, whatever it's called now. I have moved to Mastodon. Kofi. There we go. So, whilst I'm here, I might as well quickly show you. This is the idea for the online gallery. I've made a down here. Oh, where is it? I didn't put a link to it. That was a bit daft. So I made a spreadsheet. There we go. bit.ly. Garden wild spreadsheet. So I made a spreadsheet of about 100 UK native wildflowers, and it's just kind of handy information to have, really. It'd be nice to spend the time. I can't really afford any more time to do it, so I'm doing design work. But it would be nice to have got the funding to do it, because there's quite a lot you can do with it. Like you can put in what combinations of plants and the colours of the flowers, and actually visually display which flowers are in, which flowers are in flower, which time of the year. And then there's ferns, grasses, and forbs, and what do they call them? Sedges and stuff. They've got the wildflowers, got the forbs, ferns, aquatic, shrubs, and trees. And there's just all this stuff that I could do, but I ain't got the time for it. So there's 100 native wildflowers here, and the idea was with Garden Wild was to get funding for it and grow a whole load of them, and then take photographs of them and combine it with photographs. These are Creative Commons photographs, and combine it with photographs from Creative Commons, and then people can get an idea of what the flower actually looks like, what the plant looks like. So it's nice, but it's just a couple of demos rather than it being a full-on website, because we didn't get the funding, but never mind. Anyway, so back to the Hope Garden. I'm not gonna do. Am I gonna do anything here? No. I will come back to this, and then what I will start doing is, if I go to my page, I've got a NatureWorks page as well. As I said, I don't really use my NatureWorks page. Oh, I'm streaming now. It tells me. Oh, I can write a quick update. So let me just do a quick screen grab. Active window, 2 seconds. There we go. Save that to my desktop as a JPEG. Save, add an image. And I'm going to do this with the Hope Garden as well. Huh? There we go. Screenshot of live streaming. So yeah, I will actually add, I'll add some more stuff on here, but I don't really use it very much. But I will be using it for the Hope Garden. Okay, so I'm just trying to, that'll do. So I'm all kind of live streamed out for the day, not a big kind of session or anything. I hope that's interesting. Is it? I don't know. Yeah, onwards and I'll keep people updated as to what happens.